Hello and welcome to my channel. Sit back, close your eyes, let yourself be carried away by the story and get ready to drift off to sleep in peace. Leave a comment and please subscribe. A king's castle looked like power, thick stone walls, soaring towers, banners snapping in the wind. But step inside on a January night in medieval northern Europe, and that same stone became a genuine enemy, absorbing the day's meager warmth and radiating cold back into every room long after any fire had been lit. Kings, queens, and the wealthiest nobility of the medieval world did not escape winter simply because they commanded armies and owned vast estates. They fought the same cold that threatened every peasant in their kingdom, only with more resources, more servants, and considerably more elaborate strategies to survive it. This is the story of how medieval royalty actually stayed warm and slept and survived inside buildings that, by modern standards, were never truly built to be warm at all. Chapter 1: Stone and Silence: Why Castles Were Naturally Freezing. To understand how medieval kings and their households survived winter within their own castles, it is first necessary to understand a basic architectural reality that shaped every aspect of royal winter life. Castles, for most of the medieval period, were built primarily as defensive structures, and this defensive purpose consistently took priority over comfort, including the practical matter of retaining heat, a design tension that meant even the most powerful monarch in medieval Europe still faced a genuinely difficult, ongoing battle against cold within his own royal residence. The thick stone walls that made castles so effective at withstanding siege and assault carried a significant thermal drawback, largely unavoidable given medieval building technology and materials. Stone possesses considerable thermal mass, meaning it absorbs and stores heat and cold alike, but stone also conducts heat relatively efficiently compared to materials such as timber, meaning a castle's massive stone walls, once thoroughly chilled by sustained winter cold, would continue radiating that stored cold into interior spaces for extended periods, a slow, persistent thermal drain that even a substantial, continuously burning fire struggled to fully overcome, particularly within the large, high-ceilinged rooms characteristic of significant portions of typical castle architecture. Window openings presented an additional, genuinely significant source of heat loss throughout much of the medieval period, since glass, while it did exist, and was gradually adopted with increasing frequency in wealthier medieval buildings as the period progressed, remained an expensive luxury. Material throughout most of the era, meaning many castle windows, particularly in earlier medieval centuries, consisted of simple, unglazed openings covered with wooden shutters, oiled cloth, or thin, translucent horn, materials providing considerably less effective insulation than later glass. Windows would eventually offer a genuine architectural limitation that meant even a royal residence's most impressive, elaborately designed windows often functioned as significant points of cold air infiltration and heat loss throughout the coldest months of the year. The sheer physical scale characteristic of significant castle architecture compounded these underlying thermal challenges considerably. Great halls, chapels, and other significant ceremonial or functional spaces within a typical medieval castle were frequently designed with substantial height and volume specifically intended to convey appropriate royal or noble grandeur and status, an architectural priority that, however successful at achieving its intended symbolic and political purpose, directly worked against effective heat retention, since a larger volume of interior air requires proportionally greater heating effort to achieve and maintain any given comfortable temperature compared to a more modestly sized space. This fundamental combination of thermally conductive stone construction, imperfectly insulated window openings, and architecturally ambitious interior spaces meant that medieval castles, for all their genuine military and political power, remain genuinely difficult and resource-intensive. Environments to adequately heat throughout the winter months, a persistent practical challenge that shaped nearly every specific royal winter survival strategy. Examined throughout the remainder of this narration. Chapter 2: The Great Hall Hearth, Heating a Kingdom's Center. Within this genuinely challenging thermal environment, the hearth fire, and specifically the substantial central hearth typically found within a castle's great hall, represented the single most important and consistently relied upon source of warmth available to medieval royal and noble households. And understanding how these significant hearths actually function reveals important insight into the broader strategy medieval castle dwellers employed in their ongoing effort to manage winter cold. Great hall hearths within significant medieval castles were typically substantial structures, considerably larger in both scale and fuel capacity, compared to the more modest hearths found within ordinary peasant homes, discussed in related historical accounts of medieval winter survival. These substantial hearths burned correspondingly larger quantities of wood, and, in later medieval centuries, and in certain regions with reliable local access to coal deposits, sometimes coal as well, generating meaningfully greater heat output capable of at least partially compensating for the Great Hall's characteristically large interior volume and correspondingly greater overall heat loss compared to more modestly proportioned rooms. Securing an adequate, reliable fuel supply for these substantial royal and noble hearths represented a genuinely significant logistical undertaking, involving dedicated household staff specifically tasked with managing woodland resources, arranging fuel transport, and maintaining the substantial ongoing supply chain necessary to keep a great hall's central hearth burning consistently throughout the entire winter season. Wealthy, noble, and royal households typically maintain direct control over substantial woodland estates, specifically to help ensure this reliable fuel supply, an important economic and practical advantage unavailable to ordinary peasant households, who, as discussed in related historical accounts, typically depended on more limited, carefully regulated access to common woodland resources controlled by their manorial lord. Despite these genuine advantages in scale and available resources, the Great Hall hearth carried an important practical limitation, directly connected to the broader architectural challenges discussed in the previous chapter. Even a substantial, well-maintained hearth fire primarily and most effectively warmed the immediate area surrounding it, meaning the considerable heat generated by a great hall's central fire diminished significantly with distance, leaving areas of a large hall farther from the hearth itself, considerably colder than the immediate fireside area, a genuine physical limitation that meant social and spatial proximity to the hearth fire itself frequently carried real practical, and often symbolically significant, importance within medieval castle social hierarchy, with the specific seating arrangements and spatial positioning common within great hall settings, often reflecting, quite literally, an individual's relative status and importance through their physical proximity to this essential, life-sustaining central source of warmth, a theme connecting the practical physics of medieval heating directly to the broader social and political structures that organized medieval castle life more generally. Chapter 3: Fireplaces and Chimneys, an Architectural Revolution. While the Great Hall's central open hearth represented the earliest and longest persisting form of castle heating, a genuinely significant architectural development gradually transformed medieval royal and noble heating throughout the later medieval period. The increasing adoption of wall-mounted fireplaces incorporating dedicated chimney structures specifically designed to channel smoke directly outside a building rather than allowing it to disperse throughout interior living spaces, a development that carried consequences extending well beyond simple, improved air quality into the broader organization of castle domestic life itself. The earliest medieval castles, particularly those constructed during the earlier centuries of the period, typically relied on the simpler, central open hearth arrangement described in the previous chapter, an arrangement inherited from earlier building traditions and shared in its basic underlying design, if not its scale, with the ordinary peasant hearths discussed in related historical accounts of medieval winter survival more broadly. Beginning particularly from the 12th century onward in many regions of medieval Europe, wealthy castle builders increasingly incorporated wall-mounted fireplace structures, initially within smaller private chambers rather than the Great Hall itself, representing a genuinely significant architectural innovation that allowed heating to be more effectively distributed throughout a castle's various rooms, rather than remaining concentrated almost exclusively within a single large central space. This architectural shift toward multiple wall-mounted fireplaces carried important practical consequences for how medieval royal and noble households actually organized their winter living arrangements. Rather than an entire household gathering primarily around a single central Great Hall hearth, as had been necessary within earlier castle designs lacking effective alternative heating options, wealthier households increasingly gained the practical ability to maintain multiple separately heated rooms simultaneously, allowing genuine private chambers dedicated to specific individuals or functions to be maintained at meaningfully comfortable temperatures independent of the Great Hall's own heating, a genuinely significant improvement in overall castle comfort and practical winter livability that gradually developed and spread throughout wealthier medieval households across the later centuries of the period. The construction of effective chimney flues themselves represented a genuine technical engineering achievement, requiring careful attention to proper draft, adequate structural support integrated within a castle's massive stone walls, and sufficient height to ensure reliable smoke evacuation without excessive heat loss or dangerous smoke backflow into occupied interior spaces. Surviving architectural evidence from castles constructed and renovated throughout the later medieval period reveals increasingly sophisticated fireplace and chimney design, including decoratively carved fireplace surrounds befitting a wealthy or royal household status, reflecting both the genuine practical value that improved heating technology provided and the broader medieval tendency, evident throughout numerous aspects of castle architecture and decoration, to transform practical necessity into an additional opportunity for displaying wealth, status, and refined taste, themes that recur throughout the remaining chapters of this narration as we continue examining the specific strategies medieval royalty employed in their ongoing effort to successfully manage winter cold within their grand, but genuinely challenging stone residences. Chapter 4: Tapestries and Hangings, Insulation Disguised as Art. Among the most visually striking features associated with medieval castle interiors, particularly within wealthier royal and noble households, large woven tapestries and fabric wall hangings served a genuinely important practical function, extending well beyond their considerable artistic and decorative value, functioning as a meaningful, if often historically underappreciated, component of medieval castle insulation strategy. And understanding this dual practical and decorative role reveals important insight into how medieval royalty successfully combined genuine winter survival necessity with the broader cultural and political importance medieval society placed on visible displays of wealth and refined taste. Stone castle walls, as discussed in earlier chapters of this narration, presented genuine and significant heat retention challenges throughout the medieval period, and large woven textile hangings, when mounted directly against these cold stone surfaces, provided meaningful additional insulation by creating a physical barrier that reduced direct radiant heat loss from a room's occupants toward the persistently cold stone wall surface itself, while also helping to reduce uncomfortable drafts that might otherwise penetrate through small gaps or imperfections within the castle's stone construction. This practical insulating benefit, while perhaps secondary in the minds of wealthy patrons, primarily focused on tapestries, considerable artistic and status display value, nonetheless represented a genuinely meaningful contribution to overall castle comfort that medieval builders and household managers clearly understood and actively utilized as part of their broader winter comfort strategy. The materials and construction methods used in creating these substantial wall hangings reflected considerable skilled craftsmanship, with wool serving as the predominant material given its widely recognized insulating properties discussed throughout related historical accounts of medieval textile use, though wealthier commissions frequently incorporated silk and metallic thread detailing specifically intended to enhance a tapestry's visual splendor, and correspondingly, its function as a genuine status symbol reflecting the wealth and refined taste of the royal or noble household that commissioned and displayed it. The sheer scale of significant royal tapestry collections is itself worth noting, since wealthy medieval monarchs frequently maintained substantial tapestry collections numbering into the dozens or even hundreds of individual pieces, transported between different royal residences as the court itself moved seasonally, a practice explored in greater depth in a later chapter of this narration, reflecting both tapestry's genuine practical portability advantage compared to more permanently fixed architectural insulation solutions, and their considerable ongoing symbolic importance as visible, transportable markers of royal wealth and status accompanying the monarch's household wherever it actually traveled throughout the year. Beyond wall-mounted tapestries specifically, medieval royal and noble households employed various other fatter fabric hangings serving similar combined practical and decorative functions, including bed curtains, discussed in greater detail in the following chapter's examination of royal sleeping arrangements and hangings specifically positioned around windows and doorways, locations already identified in earlier chapters as particularly significant sources of unwanted cold air infiltration, where additional fabric barriers provided meaningful supplementary protection against drafts beyond whatever baseline insulation a castle's existing shutters, and in later medieval periods, glass windows already provided. Taken together, this extensive and sophisticated use of textile hangings throughout medieval castle interiors demonstrates a genuinely thoughtful, practically effective approach to managing the persistent thermal challenges inherent to medieval stone castle architecture, one that successfully combined genuine winter comfort necessity with the equally important cultural imperative, deeply embedded within medieval royal and noble society, of ensuring that even the most practical household solutions simultaneously served as visible, impressive demonstrations of the household's wealth, taste, and appropriate royal or noble status. Chapter 5. The Royal Bed, Curtains, Furs, and Layers Against the Night. Nowhere did medieval royalty invest more elaborate combined practical and symbolic attention than in the design and furnishing of the royal bed itself, a genuinely significant piece of furniture that, particularly for a reigning monarch, carried substantial symbolic weight, extending well beyond its obvious practical function, while simultaneously representing one of the most carefully developed and genuinely effective specific solutions medieval royalty employed in their broader ongoing effort to successfully manage the persistent cold characteristic of castle winter life. The physical structure of a significant royal or noble medieval bed typically incorporated a substantial wooden frame, often elaborately carved and decorated, reflecting the bed's genuine importance and status within a royal household, supporting heavy fabric curtains suspended from an overhead frame or canopy structure. Curtains that, when fully drawn closed around the bed at night, created what functioned, in genuinely practical terms, as a smaller, more easily heated enclosed space existing within the castle's considerably larger and more difficult, adequately heat overall bedchamber. This practical function of bed curtains deserves particular emphasis, since the curtain's considerable decorative splendor, while genuinely significant in its own right, as a further expression of royal wealth and status, similar to the tapestries discussed in the previous chapter, should not obscure their equally important, genuinely practical role in creating a meaningfully warmer, more effectively insulated personal sleeping space within an otherwise challenging thermal environment. Bedding materials themselves reflected the same underlying practical logic of effective layering discussed throughout related historical accounts of medieval winter clothing and survival strategy more broadly, though royal and noble households possessed access to considerably more elaborate and effective materials than ordinary peasant households could ever hope to access. Fine linen sheets provided the innermost bedding layer, valued for cleanliness and comfort, while multiple woolen blankets provided the primary source of practical insulating warmth, and, for the wealthiest royal and noble households specifically, fur coverings, including genuinely luxurious materials such as ermine, sable, or fox fur, provided both exceptional practical insulating value and an unmistakable, visible marker of the enormous wealth required to acquire and maintain such genuinely expensive materials, since fur, throughout medieval European society, carried substantial economic value and correspondingly significant status implications well beyond its considerable practical warmth benefits alone. Beyond these core bedding materials, medieval royal sleeping arrangements frequently incorporated additional practical warming strategies that will be examined in greater technical detail within the following chapters. Specific discussion of braziers and portable heating devices, including the practice of pre-warming a bed before actual use, whether through the careful application of heated stones or metal containers filled with hot coals passed briefly across and beneath the bedding before a monarch actually retired for the night. A genuinely practical technique that helped counteract the persistent baseline chill that even well-insulated bedding and substantial curtain enclosures could not entirely eliminate within a castle's fundamentally cold stone architecture, reflecting the genuinely comprehensive, multi-layered practical strategy that medieval royalty employed, combining structural, textile, and direct thermal intervention techniques in their overall successful effort to achieve at least a reasonable, survivable degree of nighttime warmth, despite the fundamentally challenging thermal environment that even the grandest medieval castle inevitably presented throughout the depths of winter. Chapter 6: Braziers and the Search for Portable Heat. Beyond the substantial, architecturally fixed hearths and fireplaces discussed in earlier chapters of this narration, medieval royal and noble households employed a range of portable heating devices specifically designed to provide supplementary warmth in locations and at specific moments where castles' fixed heating infrastructure alone proved insufficient. And examining these portable heating solutions reveals an important additional dimension of the genuinely comprehensive practical strategy medieval royalty employed in their ongoing effort to successfully manage castle winter cold. Braziers, typically consisting of a metal container designed to hold burning charcoal or, in some cases, specially prepared fuel producing relatively minimal smoke, represented perhaps the most significant and widely documented category of portable medieval heating device, offering wealthy house holds the genuine practical flexibility of positioning supplementary heat sources precisely where and when they were most immediately needed, whether within a private chamber lacking its own dedicated fireplace, or simply as additional supplementary warmth positioned near a monarch's specific location within an otherwise large and imperfectly heated room. The relatively cleaner burning charcoal fuel frequently favored for brazier use, compared to ordinary firewood, reflected genuine practical consideration for indoor air quality, since braziers, unlike fixed fireplaces incorporating dedicated chimney flues, typically lacked any comparable direct smoke evacuation system, making fuel selection and careful, attentive management genuinely important considerations for successfully using these portable heating devices safely within enclosed indoor spaces. Heated stones and metal warming containers, briefly mentioned in the previous chapter's discussion of royal bed warming practices, represented another significant category of portable medieval heat source, typically involving stones or metal vessels heated directly within a hearth fire and subsequently carried, using appropriate protective handling, to wherever additional targeted warmth was specifically needed, whether pre-warming bedding before use, or providing direct supplementary warmth to an individual seated at some distance from a room's primary fixed heat source. This practical technique required genuine ongoing attention and dedicated household labor to successfully implement, since heated stones and warming containers inevitably cooled over time and required periodic reheating and replacement to maintain their practical warming benefit throughout an extended period of use, a genuine logistical undertaking explored in greater detail within the following chapter's examination of the substantial household staff specifically dedicated to managing and maintaining royal warmth throughout the challenging winter months. The genuine practical value that medieval royalty placed on these various portable heating solutions is further reflected in surviving historical records documenting royal household expenditure and inventory, with numerous surviving accounts from various medieval royal and noble households, specifically recording expenses related to brazier maintenance, charcoal procurement, and other portable heating supplies, confirming that these supplementary heating strategies represented a genuine, consistently maintained, and evidently valued component of medieval royal winter household management, rather than merely an occasional or unusual practice, reinforcing the broader theme developed throughout this entire narration, that surviving medieval winter successfully, even for the wealthiest and most powerful members of medieval society, required genuine, sustained, multi-layered, practical effort and careful ongoing resource management, rather than any single simple or effortless solution capable of fully overcoming the persistent, genuinely challenging cold inherent to medieval castle architecture throughout the depths of the winter season. Thank you for listening to my channel. Please leave a comment and subscribe. See you in my next stories.